Yes, Broncos. We finally have some real Denver Broncos news to talk about, and even though it's not exactly the kind of update we were hoping for, it's something every fan needs to pay attention to. Training camp is officially here, and with it comes the first major developments that could completely change some of the biggest roster battles on this team. Nick Gargiulo and Jordan Turner are suddenly at the center of the conversation, and their situations could open the door for other young players fighting for a spot on the 53-man roster. I truly believe this Broncos team has what it takes to make some serious noise this season, and every decision from this point forward matters. But now I want to hear from you. Which player are you most excited to watch during training camp? And which young Bronco do you believe will surprise everyone this year? Leave your opinion in the comments below. If you've been supporting the Denver Broncos for more than 15 years, hit that like button with pride. If you're a real Broncos fan, type, "Go Broncos! Let's go to the Super Bowl!" Now, let's get into everything happening with Nick Gargiulo and why this news could be more important than it first appears. The biggest headline begins with offensive lineman Nick Gargiulo. The Broncos are opening training camp with Gargiulo on the physically unable to perform list, and according to the information discussed in the report, he is not expected to be healthy enough to begin the regular season. That is a difficult situation for any young player trying to establish himself in the NFL. For anyone unfamiliar with the PUP list, beginning the regular season there means the player must miss at least the first 4 games. Considering everything that has happened over the past year, this is another major setback for Gargiulo. Broncos fans remember the preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals when he suffered a serious ACL injury. It was one of those injuries that immediately made everyone watching realize how unfortunate the situation was. Unfortunately, missing an entire season is never easy for a developing player. The NFL moves quickly, and every year new competition arrives. While Gargiulo has been working to recover, the Broncos have continued strengthening one of the best offensive lines in football. That means earning a roster spot has become even more challenging than it was before the injury. There is still a possibility that he returns once he is medically cleared, but based on the discussion in the report, expectations are that he will remain sidelined to begin the year. Because of that, earning a place on the initial 53-man roster appears increasingly difficult. That doesn't mean there isn't talent there. One of the most interesting details mentioned was how well Gargiulo actually performed before getting hurt. Looking back at his preseason tape against the San Francisco 49ers, he reportedly played extremely well. On just 28 offensive snaps, he earned strong evaluations in both run blocking and pass protection while allowing no pressures. Even acknowledging that the competition came against backup players, it still showed encouraging traits. His hand usage stood out. He's described as a lineman who understands leverage, places his hands well at the point of attack, and avoids unnecessary penalties. Those are valuable qualities for any offensive lineman trying to develop into a dependable depth piece. The challenge simply comes down to numbers. The Broncos already possess one of the strongest offensive lines in the league, and competition behind the starters is becoming deeper every year. Even if Denver decides to keep an additional offensive lineman, there are multiple players competing for those final spots. That makes Gargiulo's road back considerably steeper than anyone would have hoped following last year's injury. If he does remain with the organization, one possible path could involve continuing his rehabilitation while working toward earning opportunities later in the season if injuries create openings. At this stage, however, the focus is simply getting healthy again. The second major story involves linebacker Jordan Turner. Unlike Gargiulo, Turner is beginning training camp on the non-football injury list. No specific details regarding the injury were provided, but the timing is certainly unfortunate because many believe this training camp represented a genuine opportunity for Turner to climb the depth chart. Heading into camp, he wasn't receiving national headlines or widespread attention, but behind the scenes there appeared to be optimism about his development as one of Denver's younger linebackers. His placement on the NFI list now delays that opportunity. Why does this matter? Because linebacker is one of the few positions where there appears to be significant competition behind the projected starters. While Denver has one of the most complete rosters in recent years, many fans still view inside linebacker as one of the positions with the most open competition. Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad occupy the top spots, but beyond them, there are numerous young players battling for valuable roster positions. Jordan Turner was viewed as someone who could realistically compete for one of those important depth roles. Looking back at his rookie season, the sample size was limited, especially on defense, but there were encouraging signs whenever he saw the field. Most of his work came on special teams, yet during his defensive snaps he demonstrated solid run defense while also flashing enough awareness to suggest additional upside. Another interesting observation from the report focused on Turner's football intelligence. His ability to recognize offensive concepts, understand zone coverage responsibilities, and prepare through film study were highlighted as strengths. Those mental traits are often what coaches value most when developing young linebackers. Now, because of this setback, the competition behind the starters becomes even more intriguing. The report specifically pointed toward players like Red Murdoch and Torian York as potential beneficiaries of Turner's absence. Every missed practice during training camp creates additional reps for someone else, and sometimes that's all a young player needs to convince coaches that he deserves a roster spot. Training camp battles are often decided by opportunity just as much as talent. Another interesting moment shared during the discussion involved Torian York's family. According to the report, York's mother reached out personally to express appreciation for the coverage surrounding her son. The conversation reflected just how excited the family is about his opportunity to compete for a place on Denver's roster this season. Those kinds of stories serve as reminders that every training camp battle affects real people chasing lifelong dreams. For established veterans, training camp is preparation. For young players fighting for roster spots, it can change their entire careers. Finally, there was also discussion surrounding quarterback Diego Pavia following his release by the Baltimore Ravens. Reports had suggested Denver as one of several possible landing spots, largely because of comparisons between Pavia's athletic skill set and the versatile role Sean Payton once utilized with Taysom Hill. Pavia is certainly an intriguing athlete. His mobility and willingness to contribute in multiple ways make him an interesting football player. His college production showcased his ability to create plays both through the air and on the ground. However, the discussion ultimately questioned whether bringing him into Denver would actually benefit the Broncos. The primary concern raised wasn't about his football ability. Instead, it centered on whether adding another quarterback would create unnecessary attention around a position that already appears settled. With Bo Nix firmly established as the starting quarterback, the belief expressed was that the backup quarterback position should remain focused entirely on supporting the starter rather than becoming a storyline of its own. The report also argued that even if Denver explored bringing Pavia into the organization, he would most likely begin on the practice squad rather than immediately entering the active quarterback rotation. At this stage, the Broncos already have quarterbacks in place, and the discussion suggested confidence in the current direction of the room rather than pursuing another developmental option. As training camp officially begins, these stories remind everyone that NFL rosters are constantly changing. Injuries create disappointment for players like Nick Gargiulo and Jordan Turner, but they also create unexpected opportunities for teammates competing right beside them. The coming weeks will finally provide Broncos fans with daily updates, practice footage, position battles, and plenty of answers about who is ready to contribute this season. Every practice will matter, every preseason snap will matter, and several young players now have an opportunity to change the trajectory